Hi, I'm Neil Burns and welcome to the Mentoring Triangle, and today I'm joined by my two esteemed colleagues, Steve Turner and Julian Powe. Steve actually is a Manchester United supporter, and we thought that it would be topical just to share some of our thoughts on leadership around some of the challenges that the Manchester United manager David Moyes faces currently. So perhaps Steve will kick off with you. Obviously a big challenge for him taking over such a successful organisation and such a high profile leader, and it's no different to other CEOs who take over big blue chip companies.
Sure. Well, I was tempted to start off by saying if I can move beyond my pain to look at it dispassionately, but in a sense, of course, that's part of the issue. My pain is shared by hundreds of thousands of other people, and add up the quantum of that equals the pressure he's experiencing, because it's such an intense and visceral sport where there's so much emotion and expectation around. It's all focused on this guy in the dugout, capturing his every micro expression as another goal goes in through the creaky defence. I think, and you say compared with other sectors, but there are very few businesses probably that go through that level, week on week, of intense spotlight. So a chief exec of a company in difficulties, even a bank, the results come out for that quarter, and there's a furore, but then it dies down till the next quarter. They've got a break, no respite for him. And I feel for that remorselessness, really, that he must be experiencing, and the intensity of that, and I genuinely don't know. So ask the question, what does he call on in that situation? And I suppose to answer my own question, there's two. One's an inner, and the other's an outer. What's he got around him in terms of the outer? But what's he calling on right now in terms of his inner fitness, his understanding of himself, which enables him not just to survive but thrive?
Yeah, I think one of the real challenges for people in these roles is that nothing can prepare you for such a situation until you're actually in it yourself. And there will be few other candidates unless you've, for example, been in charge of Barcelona like Pep Guardiola has been, or maybe Jose Mourinho, who's been at Real Madrid, but there's also big public expectation. But I think the Manchester United job is so different because it's had a long period of success, but it's got this global reach, but also this tribal nature of English football in that the tendency is hero or villain, or managerial genius or complete dunce. So one of the things I'm really curious about is what kind of conversations David Moyes is having with himself. Yeah. What kind of conversations is he having with trusted confidants? Does he have people around him who can really challenge him? Or does he have people who are almost dependent on their employment through him, so tend to tread carefully around him and just try and be as supportive as possible? And what kind of conversations does he have at home with his wife and his children, and the pressure that actually places on the family context? So I'm obviously not experiencing your pain because I'm a West Ham United fan, not a Manchester United fan, but I'm feeling his pain.
But then you are used to that for many years. This is unusual for me.
Yeah. But I imagine he's going through a really tough time.
Yeah. And I'm not a particular football fan, and I'm not a Manchester United fan, but as we get into discussion, I'm actually pleased this is happening. Why is it the God-given right for any organisation to just stay at the top in the way that all those around this man expect to happen? Why is that? And it's a complex world when actually things are much more up and down. And my heart goes out to him because what I see is a man from Everton and now who, for me, models great things about leadership. Professionally humble about who he is and utterly dedicated to the task in hand. That's what he was like at Everton. That's what he came across as. So I'm with you in wondering about the conversations that are going on and the help he's getting, giving himself and he's getting from others. The other thing I'm noticing is that the fallout is beginning. Obviously it is from the fans. If you listen to 606 or whatever, there's just real vitriol beginning to run. And it's beginning to pop up from the players. I've had players who's in the paper saying, I'm beginning to be upset about it. So there must be, and it just reminds me of how those in organisation can begin to go outside and complain about who they are and what they are. And we see that in other organisations on airlines, if people are fed up with the service stewards, they start to say, those bloody people up there, in terms of costs, that's why we're giving you this lousy service. And that's beginning to happen too. So I'm just with you on empathy for what this guy is going through.
It does also, though maybe just by the way we phrase this conversation, in a sense we're falling into a little bit of the trap too, whereas we're analysing the demise, hopefully temporary, demise of Man United by looking at the manager.
Yeah.
And in an earlier conversation today,
it's taken our attention, hasn't it?
you talked about the terrible failure of the England cricket team. And in a sense you could say that the David Moyes of that, Andy Flower, has gone. But we raised the point that there wasn't leadership emerging from the team.
Yeah.
And so much the spotlight is on him. And I'm saying, what's going on in the rest of the club? The chief executives or leaders or owners and the players on the field. Yeah. I don't see any leadership anywhere else. He's incredibly exposed and it appears very lonely. My heart goes out to him. And maybe he doesn't experience that because his inner team is actually very strong around him. I don't know, but that's how he appears to me when I see him looking increasingly smaller with each match as he gets reduced.
He sinks into the dugout.
Sinks into the dugout.
So what I'm picking up from both of you here is if an organisation is going to continue to thrive, it's about the behaviours of the key people in the organisation and what they model. So how is the chairman being? How is the chief executive being? How are the other board members being? How are other people who work in different departments of the club being? What kind of conversations is the senior player group having amongst each other? So these
how are the ex-players? How are the ex-managers doing up in the? What are we seeing from Bobby Charlton and Alex Ferguson?
Yeah. So at the moment there seems to be strong support that we're moving forward with David Moyes, and we want you to back him. But it's got to be more than that. And I think it's the sort of the little bits, hour to hour, morning to afternoon, through the evening to the next morning, and how that's managed, which then supports David Moyes in a really healthy way, which gives him every possible opportunity to succeed in the role. But the key thing for me is how other people in the organisation can be empowered to actually lead their part of it well.
Yeah. Who's working, of course, as a mentoring organisation, who's working with the players right now with the challenge to say, how are you going to step up £3,100 a week, Mr. Rooney, to demonstrate the leadership that the club needs? And actually I think he's been trying to do that a little bit lately, but he's the only one who has it a constructive way. Put his head above the parapet a little bit. Where are the more seen, the Vidiches and the Ferdinands? Maybe it'd be nice to see them asserting a responsibility in their leadership.
But there's huge opportunity for young players to come through, not just on the field, but in terms of becoming the next generation of leaders at the club. And I think there's a huge opportunity for the CEO and the chairman and the other board members to really show their mettle. And I really hope that David Moyes can not just weather the storm, but can come out of this out the other side and then really model the value of someone being humble in a leadership role and an organisation being really committed to supporting key people.
Yeah, absolutely.
He would be quite a model, actually, wouldn't he, to all the young players and the players of the future coming through to see through adversity what can be achieved.
Yeah. So fundamentally it's about that success only comes through dealing well with the ups and downs. And there are lots of downs. And it's how we support each other, but more importantly, how we support ourselves through those down periods. Yeah. Sure. Be a fascinating story to watch it unfold.
Yeah.